Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paragade After Hours, a podcast where we talk about nerdy shit, video game shit, and a lot of times it has that, that vague homoerotic undercurrent that usually permeates through a lot of, hyper-masculine sort of, movies and stuff. So, if you think Top Gun, you're thinking Paragade After Hours.
Just remove the hyper-masculine bullshit.
Remove that.
Skim the fat.
No, actually, keep the hyper-masculine bullshit, but then make them kiss. Yeah, it's like, I love you, bro! I love you too, bro! Anyway.
They just ignore the no homo afterwards.
Exactly. So, as you can see, I am joined this week again by Mr. Mael.
Hello.
And we are now a bi-weekly podcast because this way we can go ahead and kind of stew in our thoughts a lot more and actually think a lot more about, the shit that we're doing. In particular, we have a couple of different topics, but this week we are drinking some Bullet Rye whiskey because we're obviously whiskey dads.
It's the usual. I think we have drinking this on more than one occasion.
I think we have. I mean, Bullet is honestly one of the better whiskeys.
Mm-hmm. So, Joe.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
So, I figured we go ahead and start off with you. I recently purchased a SNES Classic, and you have found a lot of love with this system.
Yeah, so, the SNES Classic was out of stock forever, up until, last week, when Joe and I were wandering through Target, and we usually, wander back to the tech section, and sitting in that display case, along with, a whole bunch of 3DSs, were 8 Super NES Classics. And Joe nearly lost his shit, and debated with himself whether or not he should get it. And I'm like, don't worry about it. We already got, a whole bunch of stuff. And he's like, but, Super NES Classic, I want it! And so he was just like, I'm buying this now. So we walked out of Target with a Super NES Classic.
And to be fair, I mean, the thing probably would have, been completely sold out by the time we just go to the end of the store and then we come back and it's where the fuck did they go?
I don't know. I think the last time I was in that Target, they were still there.
Really?
Yeah.
So you saw them the first time you were in there?
Yeah. Not the first time. The next time.
Oh.
Yeah, because I went to Target recently to grab a few things.
I guess maybe
the hype has died off
a little bit.
Yeah.
And granted, when I posted the picture on Facebook, I had people messaging me where the fuck did you find this?
Yeah. Well, and it may also be that they are getting more regular stock of it now.
That's true. They might actually be getting regular stock of it because the NES Classic is going to start restocking in summer.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's already summer.
Yeah. So, anyway, we walked out of the store with a Super NES Classic, and Joe was super hyped to open it up. And basically, it's so the Super NES Classic is actually a really easy way to stream SNES titles, because you don't have to dedicate half of your computer's RAM and memory and whatnot to streaming and then to gaming.
Yeah.
It's this whole separate little entity that you just plug right into your capture device.
Right.
And just, it doesn't really produce any heat or anything like that, so it's perfectly A-okay to use.
It is, and especially, because obviously what we're talking about here is emulators, which I legally bought a lot of those games, so I have the legal right to emulate those games.
Yes. For anyone who is interested, the legality of emulators, technicalities according to the law, if you already own such games, you are entitled to owning the emulator on computer as well. Whether or not it's legal to share the downloads online, or even,
that's not for us to decide.
or have them without actually having the product legally in hand. Yeah, that's not for us to decide. But we now have a Super NES Classic, so we don't have to worry about any of that when we're streaming.
Exactly. And so you basically found like a lot of love with this system. We'll get to like your projects later, but specifically with like a lot of the games on there.
Yeah, so, I mean, mainly it was that I haven't played a Super NES game in a very long time. So my brother Ben actually has the Super NES, at his place, and I don't know if it's even, out of a box or anything like that, but, I would say 5 or 6, no, it's more like 7 or 8 years ago, we had to divvy up the consoles.
Right.
And one of my brothers wanted none of the consoles. He was like, don't need them, don't want them. And so then it was up to my other brother and I to figure out, okay, who gets what consoles. And I was like, well, I want the Nintendo 64. This is, my baby.
Yeah.
This is my childhood right here. And Ben was like, this is my childhood right here with the Super NES. And then from there, we figured out what other things should go which ways. So Ben has had the Super NES for several years, and I've just never been able to, get my hands on it or anything like that, and that's fine. But it does mean that, I never really got a chance again since then to play, the Super Mario RPG or any of the Donkey Kong games. I've basically just been restricted to, the games that I do have.
Right.
And so I'm not really a person who plays on emulator. I like the physical, tactile feel of like the actual controllers and whatnot. And so that's why I wanted to have the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
Is because like it's not Banjo-Kazooie if you're not playing it on a weird, wonky controller. Is all I'm saying. So yeah, given the chance to play Super Mario 64 again and Link to the Past is really enjoyable.
Right.
So that's why I was really excited. At first I was like, man, we really don't need this extra hunk of plastic because we're moving in 2 months.
Right.
But then I was like, oh, this extra hunk of plastic is so nostalgic though.
It's so nostalgic, and the other thing is like kind of similar with like the 8BitDo Pro controller I have.
Yeah.
It's made of 90's plastic, and there is that specific feel. It's like 90's controller plastic.
Yeah. Anyone who is nostalgic for their old consoles knows exactly how it feels. Just like if you're curious, pick up, say, like a current Xbox controller, give that a feely feel, give that a tactile feel, and then pick up an old NES or Super NES or Nintendo 64 controller and just bask in that tactile difference. There's something about the way that the plastic is
like coated or like some sort of finish that they do on it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more of actually how they're molded is different nowadays.
Yeah.
So the mold construction of it, the process by which the plastic is been produced is completely different.
Yeah.
With a lot of our newer controllers, they have a shinier feel, or like they're shiny or they're matte.
Right.
But they're not porous at all. Whereas like old plastics were very porous feeling.
Yeah.
They were a little bit rougher.
Yeah, and that was like, I remember just pulling this out of the box, and I'm really glad that Nintendo just like researched the way that like they could stop the whole yellowing of these fucking consoles.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was a nifty story, and that, like, they were like, to make sure that this thing doesn't catch on fire, we basically made it, like, flame retardant. And, like, that's what happened to a lot of the old consoles, and that's the reason why they yellowed, because that fucking chemical would go ahead and start to yellow. But this one, it's like they figured that out, and they figured out how to actually do that without making it yellow, and it's really cool. And it still has kind of, like you said, that rough texture to it. Yeah. And there is something about that, like, it's like every time, because I, as a young child, loved my fucking, cheese doodles.
Yeah.
I loved my cheese doodles. And as a young child, I didn't have the same kind of complex I do now, where, like, if my hands are dirty, I can't touch anything.
Yeah.
So with that, like, I would just go ahead and get that. and they would not have these fucking stains on them.
Yeah.
They would stay, like, somewhat pristine. Yeah, it would look a little worn, like, where you were actually using the fucking buttons and stuff.
But they wouldn't be slightly coated in cheese dust.
Exactly. It's like new controllers nowadays. Oh my god, I sound like a fucking old man. Controllers nowadays catch your Cheeto dust, and then you gotta shame yourself because you're eating fucking Cheetos.
Yeah. Well, and so it's just, it's interesting to me that the construction of plastic and how we have, how it's mass produced has actually changed a lot in even the last 2 decades. And a lot of times what it's resulted is in flimsier plastics.
Yeah.
Whereas when you pick up the Super NES Classic or its controllers, you can feel how much harder this plastic is. How much more endurance it has. I mean, even the Switch, with how durable the Switch feels, still feels flimsy in comparison to this thing.
I mean, like, it's like anything produced by Nintendo is gonna have, like, that Nintanium technology.
Nintanium. Well, you know, yeah. Even the Switch, which is by far one of the most recent consoles that feels sturdy, and is fairly durable, does not have this same heft that Nintendo 64 does. And even the Super NES Classic, which is teeny tiny in comparison, still feels it feels
like it can take punishment.
Yeah, we're actually holding it right now, and yeah, it feels like I could
throw this across the room and it would still function.
Not just throw this across the room. I could drop this from 10 stories and it would last. And as anyone who has owned a Nintendo console knows, these things,
they fucking last.
Could be dropped from 10 stories and be perfectly fine.
So, the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you, in regards to, like, you know, just the games and the feeling, like, I guess with, like, the Super Nintendo Classic here, like, do you feel it really emulates a lot of that in, like, its presentation and in just the way, like, the games handle?
Yeah, so I would say that in the way that this Super NES Classic feels in comparison to the OG, I would give it, like, as a rating, like, an 8 out of 10. It is so close, or maybe even a 9 out of 10, but it's so close to being a perfect, like, 1-to-1 scale, like, feeling of nostalgia. So, that's the thing, is that this is why when I first saw these classics, the original and then the Super, I was like, this is bullshit. We don't need these. And now I've, like, totally converted, like, actually holding it, and I feel so stupid about it. But, you know, I really, like, fess up that it's a good feeling to, like, have this thing. And so it really does match up to the way it felt to have a Super NES. The gameplay, you know, is the exact same. The controllers are just, there's just such good feel to those controllers and comfort. They haven't reduced the size of the controllers or anything. It's just the console that is scaled down, so that's nice. And, you know, even the buttons, they have, like, the exact same, the feel, each button, like, there's...
Oh, yeah, it has a concave in it.
Yeah, there's two of the right buttons are concave, and 2 of them are rounded, and that, like, is exactly the same as the original. The reason why I'm docking it points is because on the console itself, the eject button doesn't work, and there is no slot for the cartridges. And yes, I know that there is no cartridge here to eject or put in.
Right.
But, like, it just feels... It doesn't feel right that I'm pressing down on this eject button.
And it just slightly jiggles.
It's got a slight jiggle to it, but I just wish that there was a, like... Even if it was just a false bottom, you know, just to press down on these things. Like, that would have just been a nice little touch.
Like, because the thing I kind of attribute that to is, like, you know, the 2DS, the Pokemon one.
Yeah.
That one has like a working Pokeball button.
It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything, but it just is.
It's like a fidget spinner.
Exactly.
Or like a fidget cube. Like, you just want to have a fake button to press. And the other thing that bothers me is the fact that the
controller ports.
The controller ports are not real.
Yeah.
There is a, you pull them off to reveal the Wii, the Wii accessory ports, because the Super NES controllers are actually reused Wii parts.
Yeah.
So that was like, I know exactly why they did that. It was because they had so much excess Super NES controllers that were Wii attachments, but it was just lazy.
It would have been nice.
It was lazy.
But it's like, okay, so my whole thing was, because when the SNES Classic came out, a big part of me was like aesthetic focused, and as people know, I fucking love the Super Famicom. I like the way it looks. I think it is leagues better aesthetically as far as like, you know, the Super Nintendo in stateside, because it had the candy buttons. It had like the sort of smoother, softer console.
Yeah, but this purple, though. Purple reigns supreme in Nintendo.
So, that was just it. Is that, like, you know, when I finally got it in my hands and I was looking at it, and just kind of, again, that wave of nostalgia hits me, and it's like, oh, fuck, I remember when Dad rented this from Blockbuster, and, damn it, I remember blowing into the cartridges and going, boom, boom, and it was just like, fuck.
Yeah.
I got converted immediately.
Now, this does raise a question, though. You know, this purple, the purple that is shown on the Super NES, it's on the buttons and whatnot, is actually the same exact purple as the original GameCube.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And I believe that there is a Nintendo 64 purple that is that color.
Is there?
I think so. Maybe I'm thinking of the blue.
Yeah.
But this purple is such an iconic Nintendo purple. Would you be interested in Switch Joy-Cons that were this color?
Oh god, yeah. I would be so interested in...
Like, isn't that... I feel like Nintendo should embrace this purple aesthetic that they have.
They really should.
Or even just, like, you know, even if they did, like, Super NES Joy-Cons where they were gray but had purple buttons.
Oh, my god.
Like, to match the Nintendo's... the Super NES's, controller.
Shit.
This is really an untapped market that the Switch could pursue. The Switch could produce a whole bunch of Joy-Con colors that match each iteration of a Nintendo console, or something like that, and people would eat it up like fucking candy.
You see, because you're opening up my particular can of worms here, which is like, why doesn't the Switch have a virtual console? I keep harping about this, and I keep saying, like, you know, fucking, I could take it anywhere, and I could play GameCube games on this Nintendo, please. So, because that's the whole thing, is, like, I feel like part of the reason why they don't particularly do that is, one, you're gonna get a lot of angry tweets just saying, you released a fucking Super Nintendo Joy-Con, but you can't put a Super Nintendo Virtual Console on my fucking Switch. Come on, Nintendo!
Yeah, but those people are still gonna buy those.
Oh, they're gonna buy it!
That's the problem. That's the problem. Is that, like,
I'm gonna be so angry, but I'm gonna buy it.
This Twitter rage is so easy to produce.
Oh.
And yet it has no actual drawback for Nintendo, because those same people who are going to be angry on Twitter are still gonna buy those Joy-Cons, though.
I know, that's so infuriating.
Yeah.
God. Oh. Well, all I'm saying is that, like, I'm glad that I finally got my hands on one, but I really don't like the fact that it's like, it felt like a miracle to see that in Target.
Yeah.
And that is something that I still don't like about Nintendo. It's like, that's my nitpick.
The false scarcity.
I really hate that. I really hate that.
Now, so one of the discussion points of, like, why Nintendo created this false scarcity was actually to kind of prove to their own stockholders that their brand was valuable. And so it was kind of it definitely wasn't for the market itself. It was for their stockholders to produce these game consoles. And that does kind of peeve a lot of people. But I would say that now they are making new ones. They are producing more of these to meet the actual demands that there is. So I think that's actually a step in the right direction for Nintendo, at least. Unlike the NES, where they were just like, nope, that's it, we're not making it anymore.
And then it took, like, enough angry Twitter eggs to finally convince them, like, we're gonna do a re-release here in, like, summer.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just it, is that, like, with the SNES Classic, I love it. I'm really glad I got my hands on it. Get it while you can.
Yeah. So that's the thing, I guess, is for anyone who doesn't know, the SNES Classics are being reproduced, and you should be able to find them either, we haven't checked, but, like Amazon.
Target, Best Buy.
Yeah, definitely Target and Best Buy are having them in stock now. And then this summer, they're going to be re-releasing the NES Classic. So if you're interested in either of those, this summer, you should be able to get a hold of them.
Which, by the way, I don't really want the NES Classic, just because I really didn't like the NES games as much as I like the Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, so, well, I guess, we are both grew up on Super NES. Yeah, that's where our generation started. My family never had an original NES. And all of the NES classics that I like to play, I actually believe I have stowed somewhere in my, for my Game Boy Advance.
Right.
They had many releases of Zelda 2, and all of those games actually available as, Game Boy Advance classics. Right. And I think I also have them as well on my 3DS. So, re-released, on
the virtual console.
On virtual console.
On the virtual console!
On the DS virtual console stuffs. So, yeah.
Anyway.
So, Joe. Moving on.
So, I recently started up my PC again to actually play, oh my god, a computer game.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, because most of the games that I really want them to be on Switch, and this is another one where I will gladly rebuy it if it comes out on Switch.
Oh god, yeah, you will.
Oh god, yes.
Joe, any game that you currently have on another console, you will gladly buy if it comes out on Switch.
Oh my god. But, so anyway, Harebrained Schemes, actually led by one of the original creators of this particular series, Battletech. So, fun fact about this series. My dad had a DOS computer that actually ran Mech Warrior.
Yeah.
And I was a young child. This was before Gundam Wing. And this is probably what planted the seed of giant robots in me. I remember as a young child, booting up this game. And I would be, looking at the computer screen, and you would see the cockpit. Because it was a first-person game. Yeah. And you would be in the cockpit, and be like, starting battle sequence. And it'd be like, oh, this is fucking cool!
Yeah.
And this was right off the heels of Star Wars, and then everything else. And I'm like, sci-fi, fuck yeah. This is what cemented, sci-fi Battle Mech Joe. And so, Harebrained Schemes, actually released a game called Battletech, which is a turn-based strategy game. It's... The way I like to kind of, contextualize it is that it's a tabletop RPG more than anything else. Mm-hmm. It's so fucking rad, and the other thing that I really liked about it, and what kind of led me to buy it, was their embrace into the LGBT community, and not through just pandering or anything like that. It was just hey, you have a pronoun selector, and you could select whatever profile image you want. That won't reset your settings. You could just, be she, her with a beard. It's, that is perfectly fine.
Yeah. No, they just literally, you pick your portrait, you pick what your character looks like, and on the side, you also pick what pronouns they go by.
And that was so, one, it's, already you got points with me there. It's it's just such a nice little little bit of code that you just add in, and it'll be like,
yeah, it's, and this is the thing, is that it's a lot of accessibility things that we talk about, is that a lot of times these things you don't actually have to do much anything to just be more inclusive. This doesn't require a lot of coding. It's just a little extra thing. Oh, hey, we want to figure out which pronouns are to be used in dialogue. Just let the player decide.
And then you add giant robots. So, like, you know, it was like, one, I get to be, like, the exact character that I want. I mean, I go by he, him, so it's like, you know, it is a non-issue to me, like, as a player, but it's so important to me that, like, you know, because I am part of the LGBT community. Yeah. It's like, I am gender fluid, I am bisexual. It's like, you know, I am the type of person where it's like, I want people in my community to be able to play this game and play it the way they want. And, like, then you get into, like, the actual combat. And I like how Austin Walker described this as Cowboy Bebop the game. Because it's, like, it's so anime, and it's also, like, you're running a mercenary company, but you're basically always battling, like, your fucking bank account. Because you're managing a mercenary company, so you have to pay your mercs, you have to manage repairs, and if you go into a particular battle, you have to make sure, like, my mech doesn't get super damaged, as, like, the repairs to this mech could run me bankrupt. And the other thing that I really liked about, like, you know, this game is that it's like a melding of, like, Gundam 08 MS Team and Pacific Rim, where it's like, you know, the 08 MS Team, it's like, you know, the mechs move a lot faster than they should.
Yeah.
But then, like, with the Pacific Rim, it's like, you know, well, we gotta add some realism to this, so they move with weight. Yeah. And, like, the fact that you can melee combat in this, and melee combat is a very good option, and they encourage this. And then you watch it in, like, the little, like, cinematics within the game, and, like, you see the mechs just go, whoa! And
yeah, it's very slow down from what, like, usually, this is one of the things that I kind of don't like about Gundam sometimes, is that even, you know, and even though a lot of times these are in space,
right? But
even when they're on the ground, you know, they just punch so fast and kick and punch and, you know, slice.
Right.
And the thing is that when he says Pacific Rim, if you've watched that movie, the punches, it's not speed, it's actually the weight of the thing that contributes to that momentum. Yeah. You know, the punches may be slower, but they hit just as hard. Yeah. And really in that movie you feel the weight of each movement. And, you know, that's the thing, is that it really does, this game really does incorporate that. Is like these units move slower than anime, but they punch hard.
And God, it's so, like, it's so exhilarating to look at that. Like, I'm not too far into the game yet. Like, I've just gone through the tutorial missions, and I've watched a lot of gameplay videos about this. Yeah. And the thing is like, it's just so, like, you know, there's a lot of extra layers onto this game. It's like, you know, one, you know, heat management, and this starts to get into my nerdy fucking side, where it's like, oh man, of course, like, you know, if you're managing a mech, it's like, you gotta manage, like, the heat, and, like, you know, if it's using a fucking laser, that's gonna be hotter, but if you're using, like, a submachine gun, that's gonna be cooler. So it's like, but you have to manage that, and you have to figure out, like, you know, okay, what's the best thing for this situation? Do I take the risk and overheat my mech because I need to take this fucker down? Or do I just go ahead and chip away at it with, like, submachine guns? Yeah. And that is, like, a lot of extra layers onto this game, because, like, there are also so many, like, you know, when you're playing, like, you know, a tabletop RPG, and you kind of create this story for yourself. Yeah. And there are so many things left up to random chance that create, like, an amazing thing. Like, I roll a nat 20, and I fucking spat venom in this guy's face, and his head exploded. Or, I rolled a fucking nat 1, and I went into the stratosphere. Yeah. Like, that's the other thing about this game, is that, like, you don't really get to target specific parts of the mech until they're down. So you're left up to random chance that you're gonna hit the cockpit, that you're gonna hit, like, you know, the leg or whatever. And that creates such dynamic storytelling, because, like, even in the opening missions, when I'm playing as Mastiff, which is, like, your temporary party member until he fucking die. Spoilers. It's like, gee, I wonder if my mentor character is going to die in this fucking story. Anyway, so when I'm fighting with him and I did my melee combat, I had like a 1% chance of bashing in the cockpit. There was no way that was going to happen, but it fucking did. And as you do that, you watch the other mech just slump down, fucking buckle back, and it is the most, like, powerful moment of just, like, that was a 1% chance!
That is a critical hit right there.
That is so rad! And that is something that I really, really like about this game. Mm-hmm. So, do you got any questions for me about that?
I guess, so one of the things that you had mentioned to me, but I think you should kind of discuss it a little bit, is, so when you were talking about the Cowboy Bebop aspect of it, you know, what exactly do you mean by that?
So, like, with that is, like, if you've watched Cowboy Bebop, you know, like, they kind of live paycheck to paycheck. Like, they live bounty to bounty. Because they're bounty hunters. Like, you know, they take on jobs, they go ahead and find, like, you know, the fucking criminal, and either take them in or take them down.
Yeah. And
then they get the money. In this case here, because, like, you take on merc jobs, because you take on, like, these jobs that could pay a certain amount, it's like, you are paying to keep the lights on, and you don't really have much of a choice in these jobs. It's like, you have to balance it out where it's like, you know, okay, like, yeah, this is a really easy job, but it's not paying much, and I gotta keep the lights on, and I gotta keep my people fed. So I have to take this really fucking dangerous job, because this is gonna be what gives me, like, the most fucking, you know, payback. And this is what's gonna go ahead and pay for, like, the repairs to this mech and that mech, and it's also gonna go ahead and pay, like, you know, these people here. That also, like, also adding on to that is, because you're kind of living, job to job, your pilots are human. So basically, kind of going back to that moment with Mastiff, when I had the 1% chance to, like, bash in the cockpit, before that, I basically rattled the pilot. And that's another aspect of this game that I don't feel like, you know, a lot of Gundam games don't really take into account for, is that there's a tiny person inside this big robot.
Yeah.
And they are getting all kinds of rattled. So it's like,
so basically concuss them.
You can. And that goes ahead and adds sort of status effects. It's like, you know, the pilot has been damaged. It's like, they can't shoot as well. Or, you know, things like that. If your pilot gets incapacitated, or your pilot is, like, you know, concussed or something, they have to spend time in the med bay, which means they can't pilot a mech after that.
Yeah.
And you still have to pay them because they're on your payroll.
Yeah, so not only do you have to pay your people, but also, you know, you had mentioned repairing your mechs. So unlike, say, a Fire Emblem game where once you finish the campaign, everyone automatically heals up for your next mission.
Right.
In this case, mechs need to be repaired.
Exactly. So this, like, it really reminds me a lot of, you know, Oath MS Team and Iron Blooded Orphans, where Iron Blooded Orphans really did drive that point home. Like, listen, the Barbados is a fucking powerful Gundam, but it can get broken like anything else. Yeah. So we need to replace the parts. Yeah. So we need to, like, you know, scrap, like, a Graze to go ahead and put on, like, shoulder armor onto the Barbados, because we don't have anything else.
So if something gets damaged, or, you know, your Gundams take hits, you have to repair those, or you have to go into your next battle without those repairs. And so this is where, you know, this game is not only, you know, a battle simulator, not only like a battle tabletop, right, but then it's also strategy as far as how do you deal with your finances. Do you go to the next mission without repairing, or do you spend money to repair something? You know, do you take certain people onto the battlefield? Do you even take this mission if it's going to be too dangerous for your people?
Exactly. And then there are going to be those hard moments where you take a mission and then you find out, like, fuck, this is too bad. I need to bail. And you don't get that money, but it's like, at the same time, you also don't get those losses. Yeah. And that is something, like, this game really touches upon that I feel like a lot of, you know, Mech Games don't really touch upon. Because, I mean, like, you know, a lot of Japanese animation is going to treat, like, robots as, well, super robots.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're indestructible.
Yeah. Well, and also, I think a lot of these mech games, you're playing characters who are a part of a rebellion, or they're part of, you know, they're knights or something. They're part of a government force, basically.
Yeah.
You're not playing as mercs. I mean, most games you're not playing as mercenaries.
Yeah.
And even the games where you play as mercenaries,
They're really well funded for mercenaries.
oh yeah, super well funded.
I'm looking at you, Metal Gear.
Yeah, to the point where you're like, are you sure that you're mercenaries? 'Cause
Yeah.
you're not really taking any jobs. You're just kind of
Gallivanting.
yeah, you're just kind of doing whatever the fuck you want. Which is not quite what mercenaries do.
No, and that is, like, this game really does, you know, like, really lean into this.
Yeah.
And while it's like, you know, a lot of people would look at that objectively and be like, that's not fun. Why would I want to manage finances? Like, why would I want to do that? It's a role-playing game.
It's also like, you think about, you know, if you're the person who's like, that doesn't sound fun, why would I want to do that? You're also the same type of person who looks at, like, a sim game and
Yeah.
goes, why would I want to manage someone or manage a whole city? That doesn't sound fun. But meanwhile, there is a whole community of people
Exactly.
who just
Who just live for that.
live for SimCity. They live for Animal Crossing. They live for Harvest Moon. Listen, if farming and taking care of villagers does not sound fun to you, you're not the target audience of Animal Crossing or Harvest Moon. I'm the target audience for Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing, okay?
Yeah.
Like, listen, sometimes you're just not the target audience for a game. And I think that for these games where you're taking care of a mercenary group, yeah, you may not be the target audience. But if this game, if all this strategy and dealing with the finances sounds fun and intricate and interesting to you, you probably are the target audience for this game, and you should go play it.
Which, by the way, Harebrained Schemes also made another game that me and Sky actually played last year, or 2 years ago now. Necropolis.
Ah.
Yeah, they actually worked on that game. So,
Which Necropolis is another one of those, like, super strategy, like, dealing with, like, the nitty-gritty, like, shit.
it was such a shameless Dark Souls clone, but with, like, a very cartoony sort of, like, you know, look to it. Mm-hmm. And I was into that. I was like, yeah, and I'm still kind of into it. I need to pick it up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, they worked on that game and then they worked on Battletech. And Battletech, I feel like, really is, like, their game that they knew what they wanted to be.
Yeah.
And, like, Necropolis kind of felt a little aimless, and, I mean, it's probably gotten better since then. Mm-hmm. But, Battletech is very much like, no, they had a clear focus. They knew exactly what they wanted. They knew what this game was going to be, and while that may turn certain people off, that's okay, because this is the kind of game that, like, you know, variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
And, like, if I want to play, like, you know, a Super Robot game, I have plenty. I have Gundam Versus. I have, you know, Super Robot Wars. I have all of that. I have SD Gundam G Generation on my fucking Switch.
Yeah.
It's like, if I want that, I got it. But something like this, like a mercenary manager sim, I'm not going to get this. I'm not going to get the same kind of experience. I'm not going to get the same kind of tabletop experience that, like, a lot of games just can't offer to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I don't have many friends, and for my friends that I do have, it's like, you know, a lot of us don't have time to go ahead and, you know, join together to play a tabletop game.
Yeah.
This is the best alternative, and if this sounds way interesting to you, it's $40 on Steam, it's probably gonna go on sale, and it's also on Mac. So it's like, hey, if you don't have a PC and you got a Mac computer because you're a fucking hipster like me, go ahead, you can download it and play it.
Yeah.
So, moving on from that, let's talk about the projects we've been working on. So, Em, I'm going to go ahead and lead that off to you. What have you been working on for the past week?
So I have gotten more into streaming. So that's been a thing that I've been working on, as anyone who has been listening to this podcast for a while knows. I've been working on getting into streaming, and I've finally done it. One, with the Super NES Classic, but also to just really finally getting into the swing of things and getting my stream setup going, and learning how to do the stream myself. So that's been really fun. I don't have any visitors usually, beyond Joe. Joe popped up once.
Some of your Discord people.
Once it was Captain Zack, but that's cool. So yeah, it's mainly just been. I feel like streaming has kind of become my excuse to make myself play video games when I otherwise would take a nap instead. So I've kind of just been approaching streaming as less of a performance and more of just, hey, I'm playing a video game, and in case anyone wants to watch it, here it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been very relieving, because usually I've got so many other hobbies and other things I could be doing on my free time that a lot of times gaming can take a backseat. Yeah, it can take a backseat. There's just so much more that I need to be doing, or there's this, that, and the other, or I'm really tired from work, so I'll just sleep instead. So this is kind of nice that, like, I can kind of be like, no, but I'm going to stream it. So I force myself to play games, and then I'm really just playing games to no one in particular, but I'm playing the game.
And you're having fun.
Yeah, and I'm having fun. So, I've been working on getting a stream layout going, which has been kind of, going back and forth, but I think I finally got it set up now, to my liking, and I've been playing, Super Mario RPG, because I love that game so much, and it was, like, my first foray into JRPGs, and it's so good. And then I've also been playing some Super Mario Odyssey, because someone, I'm not gonna name names, Joe, someone deleted my entire save file for Super Mario Odyssey, so all, like, 800 stars, moons, or whatever that I had all disappeared, and now I have to play it all over again. I won't name names, but Joe. So yeah, so that's
it was an accident.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
But okay, so kind of going to that though, because like you say that, like, you don't look to streams as like a performance.
Yeah.
Which is kind of contradictory to a lot of how other people usually view streams. Like Barry in particular, I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah.
He plays a lot of games that he normally won't play in his off time. Like, he won't play a lot of Monster Hunter World because he doesn't want to look at it as work.
Yeah.
But for you kind of look at that as like, no, this is me time.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe a lot of it's because I'm a performer by nature,
right.
And so to me playing video games while a few friends watch does not a performance make.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things, is that I also, growing up with siblings, one, I watched my siblings play a lot of video games, which is why I really got into watching other people play video games. And a lot of times why I think when people are kind of confused as to how gaming became such a performance and such a big seller, is because it's like, well, yeah, like, I loved watching my brothers play video games. Watching Danny and Aaron play on Game Grumps is literally just like watching my two older brothers play video games together.
Right.
And so, that's the thing, is I see that more as a social experience more than a performative experience. Because, like, my brothers would also watch me play video games. And that's not weird. That's not a performance. Again, I'm a performer.
Right.
Two people watching does not a performance make. And even if I think I had more people watching me stream, I don't think I would see it any different.
You would just kind of continuously play like the way that you play there.
Yeah. And also, there are certain games that, I wouldn't play on stream, like Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, because I don't know how to set up for phone stream. But, like, I do play that. I still play Pocket Camp daily because it's fun.
Yeah.
And can't stream it, so I won't stream it. So if I really want gaming time to myself, there are certainly, you know, more things that I'm unable to stream, like currently 3DS games or, you know, my phone games that I would be just as happy playing by myself.
So, because, like, for me personally, like, you know, there are certain games that I look at when I'm streaming and stuff, like, you know, oh, that's a streaming game, or, oh, that's a me game. Like, Bayonetta in particular, I get really into. I start getting quiet because I start concentrating on it.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot to say about it other than, like, this looks fucking rad! Because, like, I don't have a whole lot to riff on. I like playing JRPGs because there's enough to sort of, like, you know, make fun of or riff on, despite me loving, like, those games.
Yeah.
Is, like, you know, like, you're gonna learn something about me is that I riff on the things I love.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing, is that we're kind of, like, you know, like, abridged series people, in that, if you ever watch, like, an abridged series, like the Team 4 Stars abridged Dragon Ball Z, you'll know that those guys love Dragon Ball Z. They only do that riffing from, like, the bottom of their fucking heart. And you'll see that a lot with, like, a lot of YouTubers. Like, they riff on something because they love it. And if you are unable to riff on something because you love something too much, maybe you're obsessing over it. You know, just maybe. Because, like, we love to rip and shred and tear apart the things that we adore because we love them a lot, and we want to just admire every little tiny bit of this game, even when it's in jest.
So, like, countering to that, though, because, like, with Bayonetta, like, there's plenty to riff on. Like, there is so much to riff on. The fact that she's basically a lesbian grandma, and it's so fucking great. But at the same time, I'm sitting there like, you know, she's a lesbian grandma. I want to be that lesbian grandma. Like, I really, like, I'm sitting there like, I'm admiring this game. And that's something that, like, it's so weird because I love, like, games like Dark Cloud. In particular, like, I found, like, one game, like, I could easily riff on, like, again and again and again, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But I cannot go back to that game. Either A, because I spent 90 fucking hours on the game.
99 hours on that game.
Almost 100 hours on the game. Or B, because it's like, it's just not, like, it's a bad game, and I know exactly why it's bad, and I've explained why it's bad in detail, and now I'm like, I'm done with it. Like, I don't need to go back to this.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, a game like, you know, Dark Cloud 2, where it's like, you know, hey, this is a game from, like, 2001, 2002, and there's a lot to unpack here. And yeah, it's like, you know, the voice acting hasn't aged well. But kind of going back to, like, you know, just kind of like the streaming aspect of it is that, like, I look at certain games and I'm like, I don't think that this will be fun to watch. But at the same time, I'm also kind of battling that in my head because I'm like, no, I like watching other people stream games even when they're super concentrated.
Yeah.
Even when they're not talking a whole lot, like Octo.
Yeah. And
because it reminds me of, like, you know, sitting with my friends and watching them play video games, like watching Michael play video games, watching Lucas play video games. It's fun, and I feel like, yeah, you really touched upon, like, that aspect of, like, no, I like watching people play video games because that's enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that, like, it's just like when I watch my brothers play, sometimes I don't want to watch my brothers play for their commentary on it.
Yeah.
I like just watching them play the game itself. And also, I also watch a lot of speedrunners.
Yeah.
Who don't necessarily have as much personality.
Yeah.
They're just
playing the game.
They're just playing the game. They're just speedrunning it.
Yeah.
And so I'm totally fine with silence on stream, basically. I'm fine with not being as
animated.
Yeah, as animated. And so you're a little bit more animated on stream, and I think that you would agree with me when I say I'm a lot more subdued on stream.
Yeah.
And that's how it's gonna be. And I'm not gonna try to change that at all. I'm just going to play the game how I want to. And I think that's the thing, is that I don't want to see Twitch, and I don't want to see my streams as a performance.
Right.
Because, again, I'm used to performing. That does not make a performance. I just want to play games, and I want my friends to be able to watch it. And I guess one of the things is that I'm not seeing this as a potential moneymaker or anything.
Right.
I don't see this becoming
a bigger thing
for me. If it does, I don't know. No, that's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen. But if it does, that would be fun, but I'm still going to play...
Just an extra $20 in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm just going to stream games because if my friends happen to want to watch it, that'd be cool.
And that's also part of the reason why I like, streaming a lot. And in particular, I kind of find myself at odds with, like, like certain niche games. Like, I recently started SD Gundam G Generation. And Ragnar Zero, love ya. But at the same time, I want to play games the way I want to play. Yeah. It's like, I want to find out the games that I do. And, like, yeah, it's like, if that includes me, looking at a walkthrough or something, great. But I want to get to that step. I want to get to that step on my own. And this is, like, it's like playing, like, certain games with my dad. Like, if my dad has played the game before, he tends to backseat game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I understand where it's coming from because he wants me to, like, play the game well.
He wants you to play the game the way he would play it.
But it's like, at the same time, I'm like, no, I want to get to this, I want to get to this certain, like, conclusion. I want to get to the conclusion I would get to. And that's the thing that is very unique to games. And that's the thing that I usually come at odds with, like, with, like Twitch stream chats and stuff.
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed is that every once in a while someone will come into your stream chat and tell you how to play the game.
And I don't want to. I want to play the game. I want to play it.
You tend to go along with what they are saying.
Yeah.
But, like, I can tell that you start to get frustrated because you're like, I just wanted to figure this out on my own.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I gotta get a little bit more stiffer about that. It's like, I don't want to be an asshole, because I'm, like, also, like, alright, you're coming in here, and, like, you're watching me play or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's, like, at the same time, I'm also just kind of like, listen, dude, I want to play the game I want to play, like, the way I want to play it. It's, like, that's the wonderful thing about video games, is, like, there's not one super correct way to play it, unless you're playing a super, super linear game.
Yeah.
And in which case, it's, like, even then, you can still kind of go off the rails, and it can wind up in super weird experiences, which I want to tell you a story.
Yeah.
Back when I lived with Pepito.
Yeah.
He had Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And Dad came over, like, he was staying the night or whatever.
But, by the way, we should specify for podcast listeners, Pepito is Joe's uncle. Go on.
So Pepito, he was playing, like, Call of Duty or whatever, and Dad came over and he was like, oh, I want to see how the Xbone plays. And he's like, okay. So he starts up Call of Duty, and, like, Dad's playing it, and he's like, Joe, why don't you take over? And it's a single-player campaign.
Yeah.
And we're doing, like, some sort of simulation thing, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna play this the way I would play it, and I'm gonna fuck around.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, there's a set path you have to go down, and the game's clearly telling you, like, go down this path. And I'm like, no, fuck that. And I go the opposite way.
And you did that in a room with Pepito and your dad, who know how Call of Duty's supposed to be played.
Well, that's just it. It's that Dad had absolutely no idea. Here's the thing about Dad. If he doesn't know how the game is played...
Yeah.
Because I played all the way through Arkham City.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, like, the way he plays Wolfenstein is, like, he's super stealthy, he's super careful, and he just doesn't do anything. The way he plays Arkham City is that, I'm fucking Batman! I'm bulletproof! And runs into the room and beats everybody.
Going in, guns a-blazing.
But, like, for me, it's like I play Batman Arkham City, and I'm like, nah, I gotta go to the rafters, I gotta go there, I gotta take them out stealthily. Yeah. And then, like, Wolfenstein's like, this is a fucking id game! I know this shit! I know Doom! Run in, fucking punch Nazis and shit. But
hey!
But anyway, like, for this Call of Duty game, like, I went the opposite way, and of course the game tells me, like, no, game over, resets me back to the checkpoint. I'm like, aw, really? I can't go that way? And then Pepito's like, of course you can't go that way. I'm like, well, why not?
What do you mean, of course? I figured I could go this way.
Like, what if I go that way and I go around to the back of the building, and then I go ahead and take out everybody that way? He's like, why would you do that? I'm like, I played fucking Dishonored! Like, I do this shit! Which
Dishonored rewards you for finding separate paths.
Exactly. Like, fucking Arcane Studios games, which I could just rant on and on and on about Arcane Studios games.
Yeah.
They reward you for the fact of, like,
hey, you found another way to go do this.
Good job. Yeah. So, like, I remember playing that way, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't understand about me, is that I really want to fail. Like, if this doesn't work, I want to fail, because that way I know it fails.
Yeah.
But if I succeed, I succeeded. It's like, it's great. That's awesome. And then I'll go ahead and do it that way. And this is also probably the reason why I tend to be in, like, an IT field, where it's like, okay, flip this switch. Ah, fuck, it didn't work. Okay, try this way.
Try the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in IT, you gotta try multiple solutions to find the answer. And the answer's not, the solution's not going to be, like, dead ahead. And I feel like one of the things that makes me so good at, like, Harvest Moon and, like, Animal Crossing and stuff like that is, like, I find the most efficient way.
Yeah.
It may not be the direct way. It may not be the most easily laid out way, but it is the most efficient way.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily you, where you just kind of amble around until you find, a way.
Yeah.
I find, like, okay, I make a calculated move to figure out how can I be the most profitable at selling turnips.
And I find this way where it's like, I flip this switch, that worked. Flip the next switch, ah, shit, that didn't work. Okay, go back.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with, like, the game facts just like, okay, so selling turnips, you get about 120 profit. Okay, so what if you do this, that, and the other? Okay, now you get 240 profit. So if I multiply that times, 50 per week.
God.
Yeah, no, like, per every 4 days. Yeah, that's me. That's
you. And
I am the person who writes down everything.
And both ways are valid. And both ways are super fun.
Any way that you play a game is valid, because remember, games are they are an interactive experience, and if a video game was meant to be played in one specific way only, and only meant to be experienced in one very strictly linear way, it might as well have just been a fucking movie, whereas
those ways are also valid.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that an interactive experience means that your own input is part of the experience. So even if you are exploring in a different way that was not meant to be intended by the game, and you end up getting teleported back to a certain point, that's still your experience.
Yeah.
You got to experience something different from someone else, and that is how interactive and interesting a video game can be.
And like I said, I really, really like the idea of failure.
Yeah.
Because I can fail in a very safe space, and it's like, okay, I'll reload the last save.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, people will look at that like, it's wasted time. It's like, well, it's not wasted time. I had fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, you should be able to embrace every aspect of the interactivity of this game, even if it ends in a fail state.
Even if it ends in a fail state. So, do you have anything to add onto your project?
Oh, we were still talking. Oh, yeah, that's right. We were talking about streaming.
We were talking about streaming.
No, I think that's about it. Basically, streaming is fun. Streaming is an interactive experience for everyone. And if you're interested in watching me stream some Super Mario RPG or Super Mario Odyssey from the very beginning, you can watch me stream at Malacology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what about you, Joe? What project are you doing?
Fucking Gundams.
Yeah, surprise. So Joe puts plastic pieces of hunk together and paints them and calls them, names them things.
So, like, this is something that, like, we kind of touched upon earlier when we were talking about Gundam Build Divers. And that, like, Gundam Build Divers really did, like, light a fire under my ass about, like, Gundam again. And I was, like, super excited. Like, I'm looking at, like, the kits that are coming out from Gundam Build Divers. And, yeah, they look really excessive, i.e. the fucking Weasel has Heelys on his mobile suit.
Heelys to skate away from your feelies.
But it's, like, it's fun. And I'm like, oh, man, that, like, while that sounds absolutely, like, not practical at all, why would a giant robot have Heelys? But I'm like, that's fucking cool, though.
So what Joe is saying is that instead of working on any of the other Gundam kits that he already bought, he bought, like, 5 more. So every once in a while, Joe does this. He gets back into into Gundam. He builds more Gundams, and so by building more Gundams, he buys more Gundam kits instead of actually building the ones he already has.
So the good news is that I'm getting back to my backlog, and I'm actually building more of those. Like, I built the fucking one I bought a year ago.
Yeah, but are you gonna buy any more as well that you've already bought like 5 in the last 2 weeks?
So far, out of the 5 that I built, or bought, rather, out of the 5 that I bought right now, those are kind of the ones I'm gonna cap out at.
Yeah, are you sure?
Well, there's one more coming in, like, in 2 months,
Okay.
because I pre-ordered it, because that was the Gundam Woundward, the big butt one. Big butt bumble butt. So, like, that one's gonna be coming in, but that was, like, a Premium Bandai one, which, okay, so, just to explain, Premium Bandai, you can't buy in the States, they are gonna get shipped to the States, they're only available in Japan, or Hong Kong, apparently.
If you buy them on some other source, like eBay or whatever, you get them.
eBay, or, like, any of the other Premium Bandai sites, like, they go ahead and capitalize off of this, which, A+ to you, you're giving me decent shipping, so... let's see, I think it's called Gundam, no, not, fuck, I want to plug them, because I'm also like, yo, you gave me a solid deal on these Premium Bandai Gundams.
Yeah.
Yes, but anyway, so going off of that is, like, I got some more kits, and I have kits coming in, like, 2 months from now, but it really did reignite, like, my love for this sort of medium. In particular, like, I started focusing more on, like, doing new things with these models, i.e., like, water slide decals, actually having you help me fabricate parts on these, and I want to get more into that. And this is something that I really think is, it's fun and artistic, and it provides you, like, a base, and, like, that's something that I just feel is something lacking from, say, like, Lego or whatever. Where, like, Lego, you kind of have to, and I mean, it's like, this could be said to Gundam as well, but it's like, you kind of have to adapt your vision to this blocky texture, whereas, like, Gundam provides you, like, a way to, like, this is your base, and we provide you ideas, and also, like, even in our anime, like, say, like, listen, use putty, use this, because they made a fucking, like, grimoire into Sigurd from fucking Dark Souls. It's like, that's amazing to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And they really do encourage, like, creativity. Make this your own. Make this...
Yeah. Part of what the Gundam build fighters and build divers are doing is showing the different ways that people do actually customize their Gundams. The most recent episode actually had a Gundam that had LED lights installed into the the model itself, which is actually a thing that people do.
Exactly. And it was doing rainbow colors, and it was so gay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you haven't heard, Gundam Build Divers is a really, really fun anime that is really, really gender and sexually diverse in ways that I did not expect out of Japan. So go watch that.
So, overall, like, being back into this hobby of mine and just, like, kind of diving back in... diving back into it and being like, wow, here are a whole bunch of new things that I haven't tried when I was, like, super into Gundam. And doing things that I, like, are outside of my comfort zone. Like, I attempted the water slide decals on my latest model 5 fucking times and failed 4 times. And then finally succeeded on the 5th time.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm trying things and I'm trying to get better at this. And it's making me want to get better at, artistic things like this. And while I understand it's very much a fan creation, it's very much like, something that's like, it's not making me money or anything like that. I don't think that that's like the end all be all of this.
No, you shouldn't be doing a hobby just because you want to make money
exactly.
at it. I think that every once in a while we know people or hear of people who want to do something specifically because they think they're going to be able to make money out of
right.
it. And usually we see those projects kind of just disappear.
Yeah.
This podcast...
It makes no money!
It makes no money neither of us expect for it to make money ever. The same goes with our streams. We do these streams simply because we want to.
Yeah.
You know, literally, as I had just said, is that my stream is for me to encourage myself to play games when I otherwise would sleep instead. You know, we're doing these things because specifically we just want to. We don't anticipate them to be profitable, but I see a lot of people who do something because they want to be profitable at it, and it just kind of fades away because it's not fun for them. Gundam is specifically just about having fun. I don't think there's anyone in the Gunpla community, internationally or in Japan, that is doing it because they make money at it. They do it because it's fun. You know, like, and the same goes for, you know, my fanfic creations. I'm doing fanfiction because I enjoy it. Because I find fun in making my own stories. And a lot of times, like, I could, instead of making a story about Overwatch characters, I could insert my own characters and try to profit off of it. But then, no, I couldn't upload it to, like, AO3 because no one would read it. I wouldn't, like, I specifically upload fan fiction to the internet because I want other people to read it and enjoy it. I don't want to make money off of anything. That's why, like, when I think about the fact that 50 Shades of Grey is actually a fan fiction, it makes me really upset because this woman literally made fan fiction about Twilight and then inserted her own characters and made $1 bazillion off of it. Like, it does kind of upset me because she took this was a hobby and she made it into something profitable. But, like, it just kind of feels like now there's probably a lot of people in fan fiction or people who are making novels because so and so, I don't even remember her name, profited off of it. And it's just, it's boring to me. I do fan, but we can all enjoy. Streaming is the same way. And it's the same with your Gundams. You want to make Gundams, create your Gunpla creations.
That's cool too.
The
way I describe a lot of the ways I got into, like, say, IT or whatever, was because, like, you know, and while that did eventually, you know, go into a professional parts or whatever, I tend to be like, let me buy this pre-made fucking thing from Asus. That's the same thing when it comes to, like, streaming or whatever. And even when I look at games that I want to stream as a hobby, and, like, you know, I want to be able to provide good commentary on this, or, like, you know, riffing or whatever, and I'm thinking, like, you know, what's going to give me the best material? What's going to make me think? And, yeah, it's like, you know, with Gundam, it's like, I'm thinking, how do I make this look better? How do I make this look, like, you know, fucking cool? And for anybody else, because, God, if I was doing this for anybody else, I would just only, kit looks cool. Oh, this kit looks fucking rad. It's like, I'm doing, like, and that's okay to be self-indulgent. It's okay to be like, you know, this is for me.
Yeah, well, that's what hobbies end up making money off of something. More power to you. If you end up being able to do something, a hobby-wise, that ends up making money, like, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you got to do that.
Exactly.
But if you're going into a hobby specifically because you're making money off of it, it's not a hobby. It's work.
It's work. And, like, even then, it's like, you know, if your hobby becomes work and you do make good money off of it, that's cool too.
Yeah. But super more power to you. But again, like, you can't go into streaming thinking that you're going to do it because it's going to make you money.
Exactly.
You're doing streaming because it's fun. You're doing Gundams because it's fun. You're doing art because it's fun. You're doing painting because it's fun. And if it happens to make you money, cool.
Yeah.
But don't do anything that is considered a hobby because you're gonna make money off of it. That's just not how it works.
Do it for your own personal enjoyment and do it for your own personal growth.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. And in the case of, like, you know, computers and IT for me, it's for my own personal enjoyment and it was for my own personal growth. And it just happened that, like, hey, this skill can actually make me money. And it's, like, cool that I added that to my job, and now that's in my job description, and I'm like, cool, that's work now. and I have these other things to go ahead and compensate for that. And even then, it's like that's okay, and like don't like that's just it. It's like I think about something like I think about someone like Aaron Hansen.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I think like he plays less games in his off time now because he's like, that's work. But he does things like I read books, I go to Ren fairs, I eat certain food. Like if it isn't apparent, I'm a fan of Aaron Hansen.
Yeah.
He is my idol. But he, like, he looks at art and he's like, I feel very passionately about art, and I go ahead and showcase that because that's my hobby. And while, yes, playing video games is my job, it's like I have different things to compensate for that, and it doesn't mean that I'm less of a person for that.
Yeah. And
it doesn't mean that, like, also, if you're playing video games for a job, that's also cool.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of, in case of, like, Game Grumps, that actually stemmed from, hey, I just want to do a fun thing with something that I already like. It did happen to become a job for them, which is also awesome.
Yeah. So, in that case there, wow, we are almost at an hour and 11 minutes here.
Yeah, so let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up. Gundam. It's fun, it's cool. It's also not super expensive unless you get to Premium Bandai. But otherwise, like, the kits are like $10. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them at USA Gundam Store, which is super awesome. They have the lowest shipping rate, and they're based out of here in Florida. Mm-hmm. Which I'm gonna always give them a shout out because they're super cool people.
Oh yeah.
And then as for the Premium Bandai kits, because I just looked this up, Gundam kits, GKGundamKit.com. Yes, get them from there. They're based out of Hong Kong. Their site is horrible English, but it's okay. They actually ship it, and it came fantastically well as opposed to my other Premium Bandai kits.
Yep.
So, okay. M.
Yes.
Where can we find you on the internet?
So, you can find me at Maelacology on Twitch, MaelALACOLOGO.
I'll post it in the description.
I'm like, I'm tipsy. Spelling's hard. But yes, Maelacology, where you can find me Twitch stream irregularly, but at least for several hours a day when I do. I'm getting into streaming more and more, and probably, I imagine that when the two of us move into our next apartment, there's going to be some sort of stream going on every day, whether or not it's from Joe or me. Yep. So that'll be fun.
And then for me, you can find me on Twitter at JustJoeLet'sPlay. I post my schedule there, although my schedule is always up to change, because either A, I'm building Gundam, or B, I'm just like, I wanna sleep.
I don't, like, literally, to quote you, I don't do this for money. I can do this whenever the fuck I want.
Exactly. So, and then, of course, on Twitter, you can, or not Twitter, Twitch, you can find me at JustJoeStars, because I'm a fucking weeb who loves JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And there, you'll find me streaming, like, JRPGs. You'll find me streaming any number of games that I find interesting or fun, or I just want to play, because we already discussed this.
Yep.
And yeah, and then on YouTube, there's YouTube links on my Twitch profile. Those are basically for VODs. And then, of course, Paragade, where I post this podcast. And sometimes, right? So, anyway, thank you all so much for listening. And as always, tip your waiters 50%.
Still a lot of money, Joe.
It's still a lot of money, but it's the right amount. Good night.